Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing Platoon. So Platoon came out in 1986 and was directed by Oliver Stone and stars Charlie Sheen, Willem Dafoe and Tom Berenger, and this film is based on the Vietnam War. So the director of this film is Oliver Stone, and he was actually a Vietnam War veteran himself, so he actually makes this film based on his own experiences of the Vietnam War and what it was like for him fighting in that war. So the main character in this film is played by Charlie Sheen. He's called Chris Taylor, and he's a volunteer in this war. So he goes into this war because he wants to do his bit for his country like his father and his grandfather did before him. However, most of the other people who are in his platoon are not there voluntarily. A lot of them have simply been forced to go there and don't particularly want to be there. So the two other main characters in this film are played by Willem Dafoe and Tom Berenger, and these two are the sergeants. So Willem Dafoe plays Elias and Tom Berenger plays Barnes. So Barnes and Elias are two very different characters, and throughout this film we see them have conflicts with each other. They often have different opinions about what is going on and often view the war in general in a very different way, and as such the main conflict is between these two characters, and Taylor, played by Charlie Sheen, is often having to see where his loyalty lies in, looking between these two characters and really seeing who to obey and who to follow. So Elias, played by Willem Dafoe, he's a bit more compassionate and he tends to view the war as quite complicated and not particularly easy to view. Whereas Tom Berenger, who plays Barnes, he's a lot more simple in his approach, and he really wants to get this war done, get it over and done with, and really just does everything he can to make sure it's a success. So what I do like about this film is it's not afraid to show the real horrors of the war, and there are some very difficult scenes to watch in this film. At least I found some of the scenes in the film quite difficult to watch. There's this one scene which stands out where the US forces, they go into this Vietnamese village, and well, later they actually burn the village down, but they actually kill some of the citizens there. And there's this one man who one of the US soldiers actually bashes his head in with a gun. Although we don't actually see it, it's pretty obvious what is happening, and they do shoot a woman as well, which is not very nice to see, and all the kids are scared. So these US forces, they really don't particularly care what they're doing to this village and who they're hurting. There are a few scenes like this where we start to view the characters in different ways, and this film actually does have a very good supporting cast as well. We do get early appearances by Johnny Depp and Forest Whitaker, although they don't have major parts. It's still interesting to see them before they actually became bigger stars. One of the more interesting characters is Bunny, who is played by Kevin Dillon, who is one of the younger guys in the squad. He's a very crazy character because he obviously really likes being there in the war, but perhaps enjoys it a bit too much, and we see him do some killing in this film, which he seems to get a real pleasure out of. Almost comes across as a bit of a psychopath in this film, and as such is probably one of the more interesting characters, but not necessarily in a good way. And in the platoon in this film, there are lots of different characters, and actually at the end of the film you will get to see in the credits, it does show their pictures with the actors with the names of the characters, so you can remember them. So there's quite a lot of characters in this film, but not all of them are necessarily important to the plot. There's only a few real main ones who we as the audience really want to focus on. So there have been quite a few films based on the Vietnam War. Obviously before this there was Apocalypse Now and The Deer Hunter, and then a few years after this there was Full Metal Jacket. And actually I think every film I've seen regarding the Vietnam War has been extremely good. I would probably say that this isn't actually necessarily my favourite Vietnam War film, because I do prefer Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket, but that's no bad thing because those films are extremely good, and this one is also very good as well. And one of the things I like about this is that this film really throws you straight in there. So it doesn't really bother developing any sort of backstory with Charlie Sheen's character, except we do get him narrating letters to his grandmother, just explaining what is going on in this film and where he is at with this war and why he chose to enroll in this war. So we do get to know a little bit about his character, but it doesn't distract from the main story of the war and the horror that is going on around him. And we do get to see his character change throughout the film about how he views things in this war. One of the interesting things about this film is, although obviously the war itself, when we go into watching this film, we expect to see the US forces fighting the Vietnamese, when in reality in this film what we see is the US troops fighting against each other, because there is real conflict between the troops in this film, mostly with Barnes and Elias. And many of the soldiers, they have to decide where their loyalty lies in this film. So in terms of the downside of this film, well, I can't really think of many, to be honest, although I think sometimes, although this film is trying to go for the real horror side of the war, some of the shots in this film are actually really beautiful. So the cinematography is actually really good. It is actually quite a good looking film. There are a few moments which are perhaps a little bit melodramatic. There's a very iconic scene where, well, it's actually, if you've ever seen a poster for this film, you'll know that there is Willem Dafoe's character has his arms spread out, and that scene in the film is a really powerful scene, though it doesn't always necessarily fit in with the rest of the film, because the bit in the that scene in the film is actually in slow motion, and it's a very powerful scene and very incredibly well done, though I have read some other reviews and not everyone seems to like that scene for some reason, but I do. I think it's a very powerful scene, and within the plot of the film it is very important, especially with the characters Taylor and Barnes and their relationship as it pans out through the rest of the film. So I have to say, I think Platoon is a fantastic war film, one of the best Vietnam War films, though as I've said, every Vietnam War film I've seen has been fantastic anyway. So I'm going to give Platoon a rating of 9 out of 10. If you like war films, you will definitely enjoy this because it's fantastic, and most of the acting is absolutely brilliant as well. So that is my review of Platoon. So have you guys seen Platoon? What do you think of it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.